Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I'm in this 2017 Ford Fiesta ST. This is the Mark 7 model, which ran from 2012 until 2017. You might think I'm something of a contrarian because I always say I'm not a hot hatch fan. It's true, I'm not. There is one exception though. I love a fast Ford. I just think there's something really pure and honest about them. I love the Mondeo ST220. I love the Mark II Focus ST with that 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo. That was a cracking car. I also really rated the Mark III Focus ST that I filmed with recently. Some of the people who buy them are, well, that's a story for another day, isn't it? But I can't really hold that against the car. I've had several of these Fiesta STs over the years and they never fail to put a smile on my face. Many years ago I even swapped my 645 BMW for one. I just think they're great cars. They're a proper little hot hatch. Fast and fun, just how it should be. It isn't contrived, it doesn't pretend to be something it's not. And if you go for a top spec ST3 model like this, it comes with heated seats, climate control. Some even have sat-nav. All that wrapped in a tiny Fiesta package. Let me run you through the Fiesta ST model range. It's really quite simple, this shan't take long. There's just one engine and one gearbox, that's it. Both are great. The engine's a 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol which produces 182 horsepower, and it is a gem. And the gearbox is a 6-speed manual. They don't do an auto. And that's also terrific. The throws are short and snappy. It's one of those manual gearboxes that you really enjoy using. So that's the engine and the gearbox, and on top of that there are 3 different trim levels. There's the ST1, ST2 and ST3. And to be honest, I wouldn't make a big deal out of which trim level you go for because they're all well equipped. Even the base model ST1 gets Recaro seats and air conditioning. The ST2 comes with half leather Recaro seats, but on this ST3 they're even heated. And who could say no to a heated seat? Not I. I'm sat here now doing 40 miles an hour in 3rd gear. You put your foot down, the turbo kicks in, and it genuinely pins you into your seat. It just wants to go all the time, this car. So I think even if you end up with a base spec ST1, you won't feel shortchanged. All models come with the ST styling kit, which I think looks just about right. It isn't over the top. It doesn't look like it's been designed by an 8-year-old with ADHD. There aren't any silly bonnet scoops or vents. It's all relatively low key. This performance blue with the graphite wheels really suits it. I think it looks quite classy. The eagle-eyed viewers amongst you will have noticed that this is a 3-door, but for the final 2 years of production, they even offered it as a 5, which is perfect if you've got a couple of kids. Moving inside the Fiesta ST, it's quite a classy affair, this. I love the feel of the steering wheel, feels really upmarket. It's nice and chunky and it's wrapped in leather. These Recaro seats are incredibly comfortable and supportive. The stereo system here, which has been designed by Sony, is a bit of a button fest and can be quite confusing. And the climate control buttons do feel a little bit cheap and hollow, but the rest of it feels quite upmarket. I do really like the interior of this. Everything's really sensibly laid out. It's got everything that you'd need, but nothing more. You get a nice comfortable armrest with storage underneath. You get 2 cup holders, big door bins, a decent sized glove box. And the visibility is also very good. It just doesn't feel as though you're in a tiny Fiesta. It feels a bit more grown up and mature. I also love the fact you get a proper old-fashioned handbrake. That in itself is a rarity these days. The visibility is very good. The driving position is just about perfect. The door mirrors are a good size, and on this ST3 model they fold in electronically. And you get auto headlights and a keyless start. Something that I often find with small cars are that the pedals are too close together. You have to have the feet of a ballerina to operate them, but that isn't the case with the Fiesta. Even if you're wearing big stupid moon boots like I am today, you can still operate all the pedals without accidentally pressing the wrong one. There's enough room in the back there for 2.5 people, and there's enough room in the boot for 2.5 pieces of luggage. It's a perfectly usable little hatchback, this. One slight gripe I've got is that the sun visor's too big. Fold it down like that, and all of a sudden you've got an idea of what it might be like to be Stevie Wonder. Another slight gripe I've got is that the ride is quite choppy. It almost feels as though the tyres are made of iron. There's not much give in the suspension, and that's something I'd find quite tiring. I suppose that's to be expected from something small and sporty. And if you're coming out of something similar, then I suspect you won't have any issues with it. But if you're used to something that's got air ride, then you might just hate it. It is quite jarring. Performance-wise, this little 1.6 litre turbo does a cracking job. Sounds good too. 182 horsepower in something which only weighs 1100 kilos is a lot. This will do 0 to 60 in 6.7 seconds, and it'll keep going until it reaches nearly 140 miles an hour. 140 miles an hour in a Fiesta. Who'd have thought it? If you want even more power, then you need to seek out a Mountune model, because that adds an extra 30 brake horsepower. And because it's been done by Mountune and it's been approved by Ford, you'd like to think it's been done in a factory by engineers, rather than in the railway arches, on some industrial estate on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. The last one of these I had been tampered with, and it barked and hissed like a rabid animal. This doesn't. But it still sounds quite meaty for a little 1.6. The tempting thing is, because this car's been on sale now for over a decade, you can pick up some bargains on the used market. But you need to keep your wits about you, because there are some real dogs out there, and they will give you fleas and probably rabies. You really don't want to buy a cheap Fiesta ST. The last time I bought a cheap Fiesta ST, it all ended in tears. This is one of those cars where you really need to find the best one available, not the cheapest. Trust me, I've been there and got the t-shirt. A lot of Fiesta STs have skeletons in the closet, so it's really important that you do a vehicle history check. Now, I always use a company called Car Vertical. I'll leave the link below in the video description, and if you click that link and use the promo code HIGHPEAK, you'll get 10% off each and every vehicle check that you do. Car Vertical checks databases in dozens of countries, and it checks for things like mileage fraud, finance outstanding, accident damage. And it's really important that you do a check like that before you hand over any of your hard-earned. Because of the nature of this car, a lot of them have seen the wrong side of a hedge. So by doing a Car Vertical history check, you just make sure that you're not buying a complete lemon. Sometimes on the Car Vertical report, it'll even show you photographs of the damage sustained. It's really useful. So don't forget, click the link below in the video description and use the promo code HIGHPEAK. So my advice is try and find a nice, honest one. When you finally go and look at the car in person, look out for any obvious signs of paintwork. Check the panel gaps. Check out for orange peel, all that sort of stuff. You just want to keep an eye out for evidence of the life it's had. Also, look out for clunks on the steering. Could be a sign of a damaged rack. Or wayward steering, that's another common issue. These cars should be pin sharp, so watch out for that. On the bright side, because it's a Ford, nothing's too expensive to repair. Parts are reasonable, servicing costs aren't expensive. You could run this car on quite a small budget. You know, the road tax here in the UK is only £165 a year, and it'll average about 45 miles per gallon. So it won't break the bank, this. It only has a 42-litre tank, so I suppose in today's current climate it'll cost about £70 to fill, and you'll only get maybe 350, maybe 400 miles at a push from that tank. Overall reliability shouldn't be a concern as long as you find a nice, honest one. They need to be serviced every 12,500 miles. That's going to cost you about £120 for a minor service, maybe £240 for a full. They have a cam belt which needs to be replaced every 125,000 miles, which is quite a long interval. I'm not sure I'd leave it that long, to be honest, so I'd be looking to change that about 100,000 miles. That's going to set you back between £400 and £500. But these cars are quite tough and durable. It doesn't feel fragile, so you don't have to drive it like you're carrying a Ming vase in the boot. Being a hot hatch, no doubt it'll get through tyres and brakes quicker than most, but I think that's to be expected. This one came in part exchange last week, and the moment I drive it, the clutch pedal dropped to the floor and wouldn't come back up, so it needed a new clutch slave cylinder, which luckily wasn't an expensive repair. Also, this one's got a faulty screen, just completely blank, which I shouldn't blame on Ford because I think it's a Sony part. You just can't rely on the Japanese to make something reliable, can you? Pity. Something else which is always really poor on Fords are the rubber door seals. You look at any Mark III Focus and you'll always see the door seal just hanging out, limply. And the Fiesta ST is no different. Don't get me wrong, it's not an expensive repair, but it's something which Ford should have done under recall. By now you're probably wondering what the ST's like to drive, aren't you? You'd think it'd be a riot, wouldn't you? Well, it is. It's so much fun to drive this. Even though it's front wheel drive, it handles beautifully. It just feels like it wants to go all the time. It's like taking an excited puppy for a walk when it just wants to pull your arm out of its socket. That's exactly what this car feels like. This has a very clever torque vectoring system, so I'd like to take a moment just to explain how that works. But I shan't, because it's very dull and I don't quite know how it works. It only weighs 1,100 kilos, and you're always aware of that because it feels really light and agile. It feels really nimble. The manual gearbox is a joy to use. It's almost as short and snappy as an MX-5. If you're ever feeling brave or stupid, you can turn the traction control off completely. I won't do that today though. I'd quite like to get this back to the garage in one piece. What's good is that if you do make a mistake in this, you shouldn't end up meeting your maker, because this scored top marks in its Euro NCAP safety tests. One thing I've noticed about this, it doesn't have the best turning circle. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't get round that roundabout at the Savoy. Not that that'll be a big thing on your list if you're considering buying one of these, obviously. Used prices here in the UK for a non-written off ST start at as little as £6,000, but you'll have to spend around £10,000 to find one with sensible mileage. For one like this is a 2017 with 35,000 miles on the clock. This will set you back 12 and a half. If you opt for one from 2016 onwards, there were some changes and improvements, so perhaps I'd do that. The first time I jumped in this car, well, not actually the first time the clutch broke, but the second time I jumped in this car, I thought, I should just keep this. There's something really liberating about driving something small and nippy. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure I'd want to use something like this every day. That hard ride would just start to annoy me. And also, most times I get in a car, I'm not in the mood to drive it like a hooligan like this wants you to. But if you were to buy this as a second car or like a weekend toy, then I don't think it would ever cease to put a smile on your face. This is such a blast to drive this. It never feels dangerously fast either. It's plenty quick enough, don't get me wrong, but you're never completely terrified as if it's trying to kill you. I like that. It's just enough fun. Well, I think that's about it. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below. I'll do my best to get back to you. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.